Happy last day of May. Can you believe it? We are 4 months through 2024. I might even said May. It's April. I don't even know anymore. But what I do know, it is a beautiful day here in California. Summer is trying its best to come through. It's a typical spring weather where we have beautiful days followed by not so beautiful days. But I'm here today to not talk about the weather, but I'm rather here to continue our conversation around service delivery in the wine industry. I went out on social media as well as on this platform last week and asked, why is service delivery poor and how can we improve it? And I got a ton of really good feedback. And what I've thought about a lot since putting that out, and a lot of people touched on this, is that communication does need to improve. That, that is a thread that runs through everywhere. And it's not just how do I communicate better, but it's also how do I get my clients to communicate better? And more importantly, how do I get them to understand and me to understand so that we're talking the same language? Because there are times where you can have what you think is a good conversation, but come to a very different outcome. And, I'm busy listening to an audiobook right now about how to make dysfunctional teams work together very well. And one of those big things is they talk about where really smart people will sit in a meeting together for 2 hours and come away with very different outcomes of what was decided upon. So there's a miscommunication, even though they were sitting having the same conversation. So there's a lot of other points that we can touch on in the service delivery realm of accounting, and we will. We will be back next week to talk more about service delivery and how we can improve it. But because the constant thread in there was how do we communicate better and make sure we're understood, I thought let's talk a little bit about communication today. And I've spoken about communication a lot, and I talk about communication on a weekly basis on LinkedIn. Every Tuesday, I put a post out about communication, my thoughts. And I've mentioned this a lot of times before. I put those posts out in communication because I know I need to be better at communication. One of my biggest downfalls in communication is I say a lot of things in my head. I think I've said it to other people, but I have not. Also, a lot of the time, I'm rushing through my communication, leading to grammatical errors, spelling errors, missing words. And I have to find ways to slow down and do better. I've started using Grammarly to make a big improvement. And a lot of the times I will start writing my emails in Grammarly first so that it can help me with grammar, spelling, context. But it isn't that simple. But I do think it can be more simple if we put some rules in place to make sure we are focusing on communication. And these are rules I talk about on a regular basis. And I truly believe if we all work on our communication, it will alleviate some of the issues around poor service delivery. And this is going to be very focused on how we say and what we say versus the more important timely communication. And timely communication will be brought up next week because that, what I've seen, is problematic and setting expectations around what timely communication actually is. So this morning I posted up on social media, and it's a very simple post. It is my normal as an accountant communication is key, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items that I think are important to make sure your communication is key. I put little stars next to them, key points. But to tell the truth, these are some rules that I think if you want to improve your communication, it's good things to think about. And I think if you consistently think about these points while you are having a conversation, writing an email, or before you're going into a conversation, it can make a big difference in the quality of your communication. And what we're trying to do is improve quality. Because if we can improve the quality of our communication, we're ticking a box at improving our service delivery, and that is people do not feel that accountants communicate sufficiently, and they do feel that we communicate in a way that requires more clarity. So here we go. My 8 rules for better communication. And I'm going to sort of move a little bit down in my list, which I've listed as number 4, but we're going to go with know your subject. Now, that might be simple as going, hey, I'm an accountant. Of course I know what I'm talking about. Maybe, right? Maybe. But it is not always that simple. Sometimes it's being very prepared before you go into the conversation. If somebody asks you for a meeting, ask them to give you some clarity on what the call's for. At least give me a subject. I a lot of times will reach out to a client, great, I'm happy to jump on a call at XY date at XY time, but could you send me the questions in advance so I can prepare for them so that I know what we're talking about? Now, you're not always going to get that, but it is worth knowing. The same when you sit down to have a conversation with a person, specifically about a difficult topic, you can be like, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What are we specifically talking about in this conversation? And I think it's very important to know your subject so you can talk with clarity. And I want you to remember, if you come into a conversation where you do not know the topic and you feel like you need more preparation, it is easy to always say, let's have a conversation now, make some points, and then I will follow back up with you after I've done some research or investigation. If somebody jumps on the course, he says, what's wrong with this number? You go, I'm not sure. Give me some time. I will look into it and provide you with some feedback. Know your subject, or at least find out the subject before communicating an answer. Sometimes we're so quick to just jump into it because we feel like we need to answer. Not very good. Know your subject so you can be prepared. Very important to know what you're talking about before you start talking about it. Number 2 is know your audience. I think this is one that accountants and professionals in general just struggle with. A lot of the time we get pulled into using our jargon because it is comfortable for us. And I'm sure it makes us feel more comfortable because it makes us sound smarter. But you have to understand who you are talking to before you answer so that you can tailor your response to them. It is so easy to try act smart and lose the conversation. Now, there'll be a couple of people that'll be like, hey, Zane, stop. I don't know what you're talking. You're using terms I don't understand. That's great, right? Because then you can stop yourself, take a deep breath, and readjust because they've told you who they are as an audience. The problem is there's going to be a lot of people that just sit there and nod, pretend they understand, and leave feeling jaded because they do not feel like you've answered their question because you've spoken over them or around them. It is always important to know your audience. And as an accountant that is dealing with service delivery, you have to bring it down to a level that a layman will understand. There is no point in talking in abbreviations, in jargon, or using terms that you use with your accounting buddies. People do not understand what you're talking about. And I'm not even just talking about clients. A lot of times, like, I'm an accountant and people start using all this jargon and abbreviations. I don't know what they're talking about. And maybe I'm just an average accountant with low level skills, but I should be at least able to follow the conversation with you. I should be able to follow the basics. You have to understand as an accountant that people are hiring you to help them with their accounting because it's a skill set they do not possess themselves or do not have time to manage themselves. They are relying on you to do the right thing, but be able to explain to them why it's the right thing in terms that they can easily understand, not something they have to go research themselves. They are paying you to do the research. So make sure you understand your audience and tailor your communication so that it is a level that most people will understand. Those who want to know more will ask for more information and details and be prepared to share more details and information. And you can always start at the basics. They can ask for more and be like, okay, I'm going to get really dirty right now and I'm going to give you the very detailed breadth. And they can either say, no, 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 I don't want that. Or they go, yes, let's go for it. But that's knowing your audience and asking questions to see what level of information they require. Start a bit lower, test the understanding, and then build on it. Don't aim at the high and then feel like you have to come in and dumb it down. People don't like that. Makes them feel like makes them doesn't make them feel very good, and that's not good. So understand your audience and tailor your communication to that audience. What's very important in rule number 3 is learn to listen more. You know, they're saying 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. Very important. As professionals that are busy, smart, and feel like they have to know all the answers, a lot of the time we have already preconceived answers in our head or already starting to structure responses to questions while the person is still talking. And as much as we think we can multitask that way, we can't do it effectively. We need to slow down and actually listen to what the question is. One of the worst responses a client can give you is, that was a fantastic answer, but it doesn't actually answer my question. That makes them feel like you're not listening, and most importantly, feels like they think you don't care. So we really need to listen to our clients and understand what they're asking. And if we listen, we should be able to respond. And even with listening, if we don't understand, we jump back to know your subject and we can ask additional questions to get clarity on what are they really asking us. It's the same time when clients are upset, there's normally a bigger problem that they're sort of jumping on. And this is the service delivery question, all right, yeah, right. We all here are listening, oh, things have got too expensive. No, our quality of services got worse for a higher price. It's not about the price, it's about the lack of service. If we listen, we'll hear what the real question or problem is. And when you're communicating, it is so important to truly listen and understand what the person is requesting, asking, or saying. So learn to listen more and focus in on what the words are and what the actual core issue or question is. When you answer the right question, people feel like you're paying attention and you can be trusted. Tick, 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 tick on service delivery. Very important tip number 4. Make sure you show empathy. Empathy is something I work on a daily basis, trying to put myself in the same seat as that person. Remember, we're all walking different paths and we experience life in different ways. And it is so easy to get frustrated with somebody, upset with somebody, or think they don't want to listen to you if we aren't thinking about how they're experiencing this conversation. This is particularly important when we're dealing with complex topics or emotional topics like money. And as we're accountants, we deal with the topic of money on a regular basis. Remember, everybody experiences life differently, and their feelings are justified. Now, rudeness is never justified, and that's something totally different. But if they are upset, or they are questioning you, or they feel unheard, we need to be empathetic to that and figure out ways to adjust what we're doing. Having empathy to people is a great way to build trust, and what we're trying to be as accountants are trusted advisors. We want people to come to us with their problems when the problems occur. Because if we're accountants hearing about the problems months, years afterwards, we can't react and make the changes. And communicating with empathy and seeing ourselves as trusted advisors is what improves our service delivery and moves us away from purely compliance to compliance and consulting. And you need to be able to consult with your clients. And the only way to do that is to make sure they trust you. So listen to them, hear them, understand they're experiencing a life differently to you, and adjust accordingly. Being empathetic does make a difference with clients, colleagues, team members, family members. We cannot underestimate the importance of empathy and just go for the simpleness, right? A little bit of kindness makes a big difference. Kind communication, even if that person's not being kind to you, will lessen the stress, the tension, and improve the level of communication. Number 5, be very clear in what you're saying. It is very easy to sort of waft around a response, but rather be very specific and clear in terms of what you're trying to respond. Make sure that you read it in a way that it makes sense to you. And that's sometimes taking a little bit of time. Walk away from your response and hear it out. You don't have to use a bunch of big words. You do need to be clear about what you're saying, though. Clear communication provides clarity. And rule number 6 rolls off of clear, and that's be concise. It's very difficult to be clear if you're writing a 6-line sentence. Clear, concise responses are much more understandable. I highly recommend bullet points in emails. It's easy for the eye. It isn't overwhelming because you probably could put 3 bullet points into one paragraph, but then that paragraph is this big and it looks like a lot. It gives people, makes them anxious, especially on emotional topics like their accounting or their money or their business. So why do we want to create anxiety and angst from the get-go? Rather, make sure that your communication is concise, easy to read. And in the same way, when we're talking, we can talk in bullet point form. Now, it doesn't need to be robotic, but we can talk point 1, stop, check for clarity. Point 2, stop, check for clarity. Clear messaging. We don't have to use a bunch of extra words. We don't have to cite a bunch of legislation unless necessary. We don't have to jump into the accounting literature unnecessarily. Be clear on what you're trying to say to people. No, because. Yes, because. Maybe because of these factors. Much better to be clear. I'm saying yes, no, or maybe, and here's my reasoning. And be concise about it. People can always ask for more information. Rather give a little bit less than too much. Or have your bullet points then go into more detail later on. Even give them links to literature so if they want to learn more, they can deal with it. But start with the answer. Give them the simple breakdown and then write additional reading on each topic if you would like it. But then they know they only need to focus on that top information. Or give them an answer and say, I would be happy to discuss this more on a phone call where we can go into it in more detail. Be clear on your response, give people the opportunity, but be concise as well. Consistency in conciseness and clarity, it makes life so much easier. Rule number 7, be consistent in your communication. Now, this talks about tone, method, the way you conduct yourself, but also in response time. Nothing worse than not knowing when somebody's going to respond. Sometimes it's the same day, sometimes it's a week later. I have no idea. But set yourself as a business owner some rules, or set your company some rules, like this is what we're going to do. but be consistent in your approach of communication. Communicate certain topics always over email, others maybe through a Slack channel or a WhatsApp group. Other topics might be through a company-wide video, company-wide meeting. You could be, there's certain topics I only talk to my clients about via a phone call, and we'll talk about that the same way internally. Set rules on what are the standards for form of communication, as well as what interval we will communicate people with, especially in terms of response to our clients when we're trying to improve customer service. People want to be heard, so create rules, even if that rule says, hey, got your email. I am a little busy today. I will respond to you tomorrow. People appreciate it. They felt heard and they feel like somebody is going to respond to them rather than just sending something out to the abyss with no idea if anybody's ever going to respond to them. So be clear, be concise, be consistent, and your communication will improve. Rule number 8, probably the most important rule. I don't care how good of a communicator you think you are, you have room for improvement. I don't think anybody can say they're the perfect communicator because there's somebody out there that they've never dealt with before. They've got no sense of how that person's going to react to the way they communicate, and there is always room for improvements. We can always improve our listening. We can always improve our clarity. We can always improve writing more consistently and concisely, and we can always have more empathy. There is always an opportunity to learn, and communication should be on your list of improvement points today, tomorrow, forever. We use communication every single day of our life, and it will help us improve service delivery. So let us set a goal for ourselves that we will improve one factor of our communication today, tomorrow, forever. Keep it on your goal list, keep working on it, keep improving. I think a lot of the accounting industry's service delivery issues can be solved by better communication. And I have 8 rules for myself that I use to be better. And those are: know your subject, know your audience, learn to listen, share, show empathy, be kind, be clear, be concise, be consistent, and most importantly, aim to improve your communication every single day. Right there, 1% better every day. So focus on improvement. I am enjoying talking about service delivery. It's making me think about improvement in service delivery in my own business, Protea Financial. It's making me think about how can I be better to better serve my clients on every single day. And if I know if I improve it, and if any one of you guys are thinking the same thing, how do I improve my service delivery to my clients? We all grow together, tides rise, everybody's doing wonderful. We get a better outlook about the accounting industry. We bring new, young, exciting people into this industry, and we all are in a better place. And most importantly, our clients are in a better place as well because they feel like they're getting value from the service we're offering. So let's all agree we're going to work on our communication as a first step in improving service delivery in the accounting industry. Much longer than usual today. I do appreciate if you stuck around and were patient. I love talking about communication specifically because I know I need to improve at communication. Next week, we're going to talk at some other topics, specifically deep dive into some items that brought up by some of my connections on LinkedIn on how they think service delivery can improve. So we'll touch on that. We'll have a discussion about it, and we'll see where we go from there. But I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day. Be kind. Goodbye.